Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. They called it a myth. Until this warship annihilated the enemy. The legend spoke of a warship that defied all logic, a vessel whispered about in the dark corridors of military strategy meetings, scoffed at by alien tacticians and dismissed as mere human myth. It was said to be faster than light itself, impervious to enemy fire, and capable of appearing where no fleet had dared venture. They called it the Phantom of Earth, a warship born of human imagination, a fairy tale meant to keep humanity hopeful in its darkest hours. But then, in the middle of the Battle of Orion's Maw, it appeared. The Galactic Dominion, a vast empire of alien warlords, had spent decades grinding humanity down. Earth's colonies were in ruins, its fleet scattered, its military leaders desperate. The Dominion's flagship, Gorth Prime, led 1,000 ships against the last remnants of human resistance near the dying red star of Orion's M. Admiral Zorth of the Dominion stood on his command deck, watching the battle unfold through holographic projections. It was another slaughter. The human fleet, outgunned and outnumbered, was breaking apart like glass under a hammer. And then, without warning, the Dominion's long-range scanners flared with an impossible reading: ship? No, a ghost. Emerging from nowhere, directly in the middle of the Dominion's formation, its black hull gleamed like the void itself, absorbing every scan and every sensor pulse. It moved in ways that defied physics, phasing in and out of detection fields like a mirage in space. One moment it was behind the front line, the next it was within the command formation. The Dominion's ships opened fire in a blind panic, but their beams and missiles passed through the ghostly warship as if it were nothing more than a dream. Then it struck, a single burst of energy lashed out, not in a straight beam but in a spiraling arc that slithered through space like a living thing. The Dominion's first battleship, Varric's Claw, exploded into a fiery bloom, its shields utterly useless. The energy pulse ricocheted from ship to ship, carving through hulls, igniting reactors, leaving devastation in its wake. Zorth staggered back, his heart pounding. Impossible, he hissed. Across the human fleet, desperate soldiers and commanders stared at their screens, unable to believe what they were seeing. For years they had heard whispers of the Phantom of Earth, the ship of legend, but none had believed it real. Captain Elias Drake sat in his battered command chair, eyes wide as he stared at the phantom ship now dancing through the Dominion's fleet. "I thought it was just a story," he muttered. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Vega, whispered, apparently so did they. The battle was no longer a massacre of humans, it was a massacre of the Dominion. The ghost ship moved like a specter of death, striking and vanishing, reappearing where no ship should be. One by one, the Dominion's mighty vessels were torn apart until even Gorth Prime itself shuddered under its invisible wrath. Admiral Zorth made the only choice he could. He screamed the retreat order. The Dominion, once confident in its victory, fled in terror. In the silent, shattered remains of Orion's M, the ghost ship lingered for a moment longer as the last Dominion ships vanished into the void. It flickered once, and then was gone. Captain Drake exhaled, barely realizing he had been holding his breath. The battle was over, and humanity had won. But one question remained: where had the Phantom of Earth come from, and where had it gone? The war was not over yet, but for the first time in decades, the Dominion knew fear. The journey back to Earth was filled with uneasy silence. The battle should have been a victory worth celebrating, yet every officer aboard the HSS Valor felt the same gnawing uncertainty. What had they just witnessed? What was the Phantom of Earth, and if it was truly on their side, why had it remained hidden? Captain Elias Drake sat in the war room, staring at holographic projections of the battle. The Dominion's fleet had been torn apart as if by an invisible predator, their best weapons had failed, their strongest ships had crumbled. But how? A knock at the door snapped him from his thoughts. Lieutenant Vega stepped inside, her face set in grim determination. "Sir," she said, "Admiral Kepler is requesting an immediate debrief upon arrival." Drake exhaled. Of course he is. Kepler was Earth's highest-ranking military official, a hardened veteran who had seen humanity pushed to the brink time and time again. If anyone would demand answers, it was him. Vega hesitated. "Sir, there's something else." Drake frowned. "What is it?" She stepped forward, lowering her voice. "We recovered a single uncorrupted data file from the battle. It's incomplete, but," she pulled up a holopad and turned it toward him. Drake leaned forward. The screen displayed a fragment of distorted footage, grainy, chaotic, filled with static. But then, for the briefest moment, it became clear, a ship. A massive ship, not human, not Dominion, something else entirely. Its surface was blacker than the void itself, shifting like liquid metal, its form never entirely still. But one thing stood out, etched into its hull, barely visible, was a single ancient symbol. Drake's breath caught in his throat. It was an Earth symbol. "Where did this come from?" he whispered. Vega's voice was tight. "It was buried deep in our system logs, almost like it wanted us to find it." A cold shiver ran down Drake's spine. That symbol, it was old, older than Earth's interstellar age. It had been seen in the ruins of Mars, in deep-sea wrecks on Earth, in the whispered myths of long-dead civilizations. It was a mark of something lost to time, something that should not exist. The Phantom of Earth wasn't just some secret weapon, it was something far older, and it had just revealed itself. As the HSS Valor sped toward Earth, Drake knew one thing: whatever had saved them at Orion's M had its own purpose, and they were about to find out what it was. Earth loomed in the distance, a shining blue beacon of humanity's last refuge. The HSS Valor cut through the void, escorted by two other battle-worn cruisers that had barely survived Orion's maw. But despite their return, there were no cheers, no celebrations. Captain Elias Drake stood rigid on the bridge, eyes locked on the incoming transmission from Earth's High Command. The moment they entered orbit, Admiral Kepler's stern face appeared on the main display, his silver hair cropped short, his uniform pressed to perfection. But there was no mistaking the tension in his jaw. "Captain Drake," Kepler said, without preamble, "you're 2 hours late." Drake crossed his arms. "We had to make sure we weren't being followed, sir." Kepler's eyes narrowed. "And were you?" Drake hesitated, then shook his head. "Not by anything we could detect." Kepler leaned forward, his gaze piercing. "We need to talk face to face. I want you and your senior officers in War Room Alpha in 30 minutes. The transmission cut before Drake could respond. He exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. Vega muttered beside him, "He's in a fantastic mood." Drake sighed. "Let's not keep him waiting." 30 minutes later, Drake, Vega, and Chief Engineer Ramos stood in the war room beneath Earth's military headquarters. The room was dimly lit, only by the glowing holographic table in the center. Around it stood Admiral Kepler and 3 other high-ranking officers. Kepler ordered them to sit, they obeyed. Kepler wasted no time. "Tell me exactly what happened at Orion's M." Drake recounted the battle in detail, the hopeless odds, the sudden appearance of the ghost ship, its impossible movements, the devastating destruction it unleashed upon the Dominion fleet. When he finished, Kepler's expression was unreadable. "You're telling me the Phantom of Earth is real?" Drake nodded. "And it isn't just real, it's something else. Something we don't understand." He slid the holopad across the table, displaying the recovered image of the strange ship with the Earth symbol etched into its hull. Kepler's jaw tightened. He stared at the symbol for several long moments before finally saying, "This isn't the first time we've seen this." Drake's eyes widened. "What?" Kepler tapped a command into the table. Multiple images appeared, ancient carvings from lost human civilizations, faded blueprints from black-budget military projects, and distorted footage of something lurking in deep space long before Earth had even left its solar system. "That symbol," Kepler said grimly, "has been appearing throughout human history, long before we had the technology to reach the stars." Vega whispered, "Then what the hell is this thing?" Kepler took a deep breath as if considering whether to speak. Finally, he said, there was a project, Project Revenant. Drake sat up straighter. I've never heard of it. You wouldn't have, Kepler said. It was buried before you were even born. He pressed another command. A classified document flickered to life in the holographic display. The text was filled with redacted sections, but what was left sent chills through Drake's spine. Project Revenant. Objective, unknown. Origin, unknown. Status, terminated, inconclusive. Below the text was a grainy image of a massive structure being built on Earth centuries ago, a warship hidden beneath the Arctic ice, buried long before humanity had even discovered faster-than-light travel. We didn't build the Phantom of Earth, Kepler said. We found it. A heavy silence filled the room. Drake finally spoke, and you're just telling us this now? Kepler gave him a hard look. Because until today, we thought it was dead. Drake stared at the image, his mind racing. If humanity hadn't built the Phantom, who had? And more importantly, why had it returned now? Suddenly, alarms blared. A voice crackled over the comms, unidentified object inbound, extreme velocity. It's static. Drake and the officers bolted for the nearest screens. In orbit, descending toward Earth, was the Phantom of Earth, and this time, it wasn't alone. The war room erupted into chaos as officers scrambled to their stations, analysts barked orders, and the holographic display filled with red warning markers. Captain Elias Drake barely heard any of it, his eyes were locked on the live orbital feed. The Phantom of Earth loomed above the planet, its black, shifting form blotting out stars as it descended. But that wasn't what sent ice through his veins. It was the other 5 smaller ships, sleek, unnatural, with the same liquid metal hull, that appeared alongside it. Their formations were too precise, their movements eerily synchronized. Drake turned to Admiral Kepler. You said this thing was buried on Earth. Kepler's face was pale. It was. Then what the hell are they? Drake demanded, pointing at the unknown ships. Kepler didn't answer. The main comms officer's voice crackled through the speakers. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Phantom. The room fell silent. And at its center, a colossal structure pulsing with primordial light. The entire realm seemed alive, its walls woven from stars and shadows, shifting as if breathing. Captain Drake's breath caught. He stared in awe at the anchor, a monument of impossible geometry, its surfaces rippling like liquid reality itself. That must be the anchor, Orion's voice echoed through the bridge speakers, calm yet powerful. The core of the architect's domain. Sever it, and their hold on this plane collapses. Drake swallowed hard. What about you? He asked. You said once the anchor falls, you. We return to the void, Orion interrupted softly. Our purpose fulfilled. Our debt to humanity paid. Lieutenant Vega's eyes glinted with resolve. Then let's not keep them waiting, she tapped her console. All ships, target the anchor's energy conduits. Fire when ready. Across the breach, human warships unleashed every weapon they had. Beams of cobalt light and plasma bolts streaked toward the anchor's filaments, but reality itself resisted. Each strike bent and folded, disappearing into the structure's surface without effect. They're shielding it with spatial distortion, Ramos reported. We need a focus strike at the convergence node. He pointed to a pulsating knot of light at the anchor's midsection. That's our weak point. Drake nodded. Orion, can your vessel amplify our firepower? Yes, came the reply. Align your ships in formation. Channel your volleys through our field. In unison, the Valor and its escorts repositioned around Orion's ancient wreck. Orion's ship glowed brighter, its hull shifting to form arcs of conduit that linked with human vessels. Energy bridged the gap, a lattice of pure power. Now. Orion intoned. The fleet released a synchronized barrage. Streams of warship lasers and reality-hammering pulses converged on the convergence node. The anchor screamed as filaments snapped, sending shockwaves through the realm. Colors unseen by human eyes exploded outward, fracturing the architect's constructs like glass. But the victory was fleeting. Tendrils of dark energy lashed back, tearing through 2 human cruisers. Alarms blared. Ships disintegrated into motes of light. "We're losing them," Vega cried. Drake grit his teeth. "Hold formation." "Orion, the anchor, how close?" 20% integrity remaining, Orion replied, voice tinged with fatigue. "But the backlash will collapse the gate. Stand fast." As the anchor cracked, the realm convulsed. Reality buckled, stars winked out, space collapsed into itself. The remaining Guardians tried to defend their master, but the human-forgotten alliance pressed on. Beams sliced the last conduit. With a soundless roar, the anchor shattered. A wave of dissolving energy spread through the void realm, wiping out the Guardians in a cascade of unmaking. The vortex gate behind them trembled, its edges fraying. "Withdraw!" Drake shouted. "Back through the jump gate, now." Ships turned, engines roaring. Drake ordered maximum thrust as the vortex began to implode. Orion's ship trembled violently. "I will shepherd you home," Orion's voice intoned. "My time has come." Drake's chest tightened. "Orion, thank you." The wrecked Colossus pulsed one final time, then folded into itself. A column of black light shot upward, collapsing the realm around them. The jump gate howled, then vanished. Silence followed. The Valor and its escorts emerged back in normal space, battered but alive. The void realm closed like a wound in the sky. Captain Drake stared at his viewscreen, where the faint echo of the collapse still lingered. "Report." Lieutenant Vega exhaled. "We've lost 3 ships, but the remainder are intact. No sign of the Phantom or Orion's vessel." Ramos added, "All systems green. No further threats detected." Drake nodded and tapped his comms. "Earth Command, this is Valor. The anchor is destroyed. Architect's domain sealed." "Repeat, Architect's domain sealed." A tense silence, then Admiral Kepler's voice crackled. "Copy that, Valor. Brilliant work. Humanity owes you, and them, everything." Drake allowed himself a small smile. "Thank you, sir. The Phantom of Earth and Commander Orion saved us all." He turned to Vega and Ramos. "Plot a course for home. Let's bring the news." As the battered fleet set its course toward Earth, Drake stayed at the viewing port, eyes on the stars. Somewhere out there, the Forgotten waited silently in the dark. Their sacrifice had secured humanity's future, but at a cost few could understand. And though the Phantom of Earth had vanished, its legend would endure, no longer a mere myth, but the beacon of hope that guided humanity through its darkest hour. Earth's atmosphere shimmered beneath them as the battered fleet slipped into orbit. The HSS Valor's hull bore scorch marks and missing panels, but her crew stood tall. Silence reigned on the bridge, broken only by the hum of cooling reactors. "Open a channel to High Command," Drake ordered. Seconds later, Admiral Kepler's face filled the viewscreen, relief and restrained triumph evident in his eyes. "Welcome home, Captain," Kepler said. "You've given humanity a fighting chance." "And a terrible warning," Drake replied. "The architects will come." Kepler nodded. "We know. Earth Council convenes in 2 hours. Your report will be front and center. For now, you and your officers deserve rest, but stay on alert." As the feed cut, Drake sank into his chair. Vega and Ramos exchanged exhausted glances. "We should have expected nothing less than a full court press," Ramos murmured. "True," Vega said. "But we gave them the proof." Below, orbital stations lit up, flags of every nation flying side by side, a rare unity forged in desperation. News broadcasts looped footage of the Phantom's attack, the collapse of the Architect's anchor, and the Valor's return. Citizens poured into plazas to watch, faces alight with wonder and fear. In the council chamber, world leaders and military heads debated next steps. Drake and his officers stood by as Kepler laid out the grim facts. The architects were an ancient force, far exceeding Dominion might. The Phantom and the Forgotten had sealed a rift, but at the cost of their own existence. More anchors might yet lie hidden across the stars. We must prepare, Kepler concluded. Our fleets will rebuild. Research into revenant tech begins immediately. And we'll dispatch emissaries to any surviving forgotten outposts. Drake spoke last. We owe our lives to the Phantom and Commander Orion. We cannot simply exploit their legacy, we must honor it by forging alliances, by learning what we can of the Architect's domain. If more forgotten remain, they are our only hope. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Committees formed, strategies drafted, budgets reallocated. Humanity's greatest minds and fiercest warriors united in a single purpose, to stand ready when the architects returned. Later, in the Valor's quiet corridors, Drake wandered among the wounded and the weary. He paused at the memorial wall, a holoslate listing the lost, including the names of the 3 cruisers that had held the line. He tapped a name, and a soft glow projected the face of a young lieutenant gone too soon. A single tear slid down his cheek. Vega joined him. "We'll make sure they didn't die in vain," she said. Drake nodded, wiping his eyes. Yes. Every broadcast, every academy lecture, let the world know what happened here. Let them remember. That night, as Earth rotated below, lights flickered on across continents. Prayers and vigils, celebrations and quiet reflection. The Phantom's final message, "We have returned. The architects will come," echoed in every mind. In a hidden vault beneath the Arctic ice, engineers uncovered the remains of the ancient ship's cradle. Drake watched as they extracted alien alloys and damaged conduits. Each fragment promised a clue to technologies beyond humanity's wildest dreams. And in the silence of space, far beyond known charts, 5 dark shapes waited. The memory of the Phantom's call had spread like a beacon, and wherever forgotten survivors lingered, they stirred, answering the call to arms. Captain Elias Drake stood on the Valor's bridge once more, eyes fixed on distant stars. "Prepare for departure," he ordered. "We sail at dawn." Behind him, the Earth glowed fragile but steadfast. Humanity had faced annihilation, had seen the void's darkest secrets, and had endured. Now, with allies reborn and resolve steeled, they would meet the architects on equal footing. And so, guided by the Phantom's legend, they ventured forth into the starry expanse, united, unbroken, ready for the war that would decide the fate of all worlds. The HSS Valor slipped free of Earth's gravity wells at first light, escorted by the surviving cruisers Horizon and Aegis. Captain Drake stood on the command deck, eyes fixed on the jump point nexus ahead. Beside him, Lieutenant Vega monitored the readouts, while Chief Engineer Ramos oversaw the power rerouting to the aft thrusters. "Coordinates locked," Vega reported. "Deep Space Sector Omega-9, as the Phantom specified." Drake nodded. "Execute jump on my mark." With a soft lurch, the fleet vanished into folded space. When they emerged from the jump, particles of stardust glittered against an inky backdrop, punctuated by distant nebulae. The sensor array flickered with unfamiliar signatures, cold echoes of ruined ships, long-dead starbases, and a faint, pulsing beacon. "Scanning anomaly," Ramos said. "Something is broadcasting on an archaic frequency." Vega tapped her console. "It's repeating a single phrase in an old dialect. I've seen fragments of it in Project Revenant's archives. It translates as, sanctuary, . Drake straightened. Sanctuary. Could it be a forgotten outpost? Likely, Vega agreed. But it's heavily masked, emission pattern shifts whenever we lock on. Drake turned to Ramos. Power to sensor suites. Amplify the beacon's signature. I want a bearing. The Valor shuddered as auxiliary generators kicked in. Streams of data flooded the holodisplay, resolving the ghostly signal into spatial coordinates above a shattered planetoid ring. There, Vega said, marking a point near the largest fragment of the ring. Sensor sweeps show a small structure embedded in the debris, too regular to be natural. Helm, set approach vector, Drake ordered. Keep us 30,000 kilometers out until we confirm it's not a trap. As they drew nearer, the planetoid fragments coalesced into an immense hollow sphere, an orbital fortress carved from blackened metal, its surface etched with the same ancient symbol Drake had seen on the Phantom's hull. Faint lights flickered from ports and gateways. "That's our sanctuary," Drake said softly. "Open a hailing channel." Silence answered. Seconds later, a shudder rippled through the fortress. Shielded panels slid aside, revealing docking bays lined with jagged hulls, yards of ancient vessels in disrepair yet unmistakably functional. "They're welcoming us," Vega whispered. "Precautionary measures only," Drake replied. "Prepare a boarding party." Down a narrow docking tunnel, Drake, Vega, and a small security contingent floated into low gravity. Ahead, the docking bay's cavernous interior glowed with bioluminescent veins along the walls. At its center stood a lone figure in weathered flight armor, tall, sinewy, with pale eyes that glowed like distant stars. "I am Kalen," the figure intoned, voice resonant and calm. "Guardian of the Forgotten Sanctuary. We have awaited your coming." Drake inclined his head. "I am Captain Elias Drake of the HSS Valor. We follow the Phantom's call to unite with the Forgotten." Kalen's gaze swept over Drake's party. "You bear the Herald's mark," they said, pointing to a hollow patch on Drake's uniform that displayed the rumored symbol. The Phantom's envoy. Turning, Kalen gestured down a corridor where rows of hybrid craft lay in stasis. "Our people sleep, awaiting the final battle. But first, you must learn our burden." They guided Drake and Vega through winding hallways to a vast chamber. Hollow carvings along the walls depicted star maps older than any human record, systems born and extinguished before Earth's dawn. At the chamber's heart, a crystal matrix pulsed, projecting three-dimensional glyphs that shifted like living code. "This is the archive of the Architect's anchors," Kalen explained. "There are 13 in total, hidden to prevent a single blow from undoing creation. The Phantom shattered one, its fortress must be rebuilt if we are to survive." 13 anchors, Drake echoed. "And we destroyed one. 12 remain," he swallowed. "How do we find them?" "The glyphs," Kalen said. "They resonate with each anchor's unique energy. But the path is perilous, each lies within domains controlled by architect constructs." Vega studied the projection. "We'll need a fleet, but our numbers are already stretched." Kalen rested a glowing hand on Drake's arm. "Fear not the Architect's guardians, they are bound to their anchors. Strike swiftly, sever the tether, and they fall." Ramos's voice crackled over comms from the Valor. "Captain, we've detected an inbound signature, fast approach, multiple contacts." Drake's heart quickened. He turned to Vega. "Prepare turbolifts. We head back to the Valor immediately." As they emerged from the sanctuary, the docking bay doors sealed behind them. The fortress thrummed, shields powering up. Through the viewport, 5 sleek vessels, guardians of the first anchor, descended in formation to intercept the Valor's escort. "Engage at will," Drake ordered once aboard. "Protect the sanctuary's location at all costs." Outside, laser batteries flared. Human cruisers responded with volleys of kinetic rounds and graviton lances. The sanctuary's shields held firm, but the Guardians pressed forward, adaptive and relentless. "We can't hold them long," Vega warned. "Agree," Drake said, eyes racing. "Get me Kalen on comms." Moments later, Kalen's voice filled the bridge. "Evacuate our people to stasis banks. I will lead the Guardians away, buy you time." Drake stared at the screen. "No, this is our fight too. Stand fast." Over the comms, Kalen's tone softened. "Your courage honors us, Captain. We will hold them at the breach." Godspeed, the transmission cut. Drake clenched his fists. All ships, break formation. Lure the Guardians away from the fortress. Head toward the debris field. The Valor and its escorts executed a sudden veer, drawing the Guardians into a deadly chase. The orbital fortress's outer shields collapsed under the Guardians' onslaught, but inside, stasis doors sealed and the sanctuary's ductworks hummed. As the human fleet darted through the planetoid ring, using wreckage for cover, they watched the Guardians massed around the fortress, their black forms glinting in starlight. Beyond, the spinnerets of the deserted dockyards hollowed like open wounds. "We've bought them time," Vega said. Drake nodded, jaw set. "Set course for Terra 47, the next anchor's resonance is strongest there. We move at once." Through the shattered ring of ice and metal, the HSS Valor leapt to warp, leaving behind the sanctuary's sentinel and plunging deeper into uncharted space. Behind them, the fortress flickered, then blinked out of view, its fate uncertain, its people entrusted to hope. Forward, 12 anchors waited, along with the Architect's mightiest guardians. And bent on humanity's extinction, the Architects themselves stirred in the void. The war for existence had only just begun.